It has been a while since I made any sketchbook tour videos, so I have just filled up this one recently, and today I want to show you what's inside. This is a custom watercolor sketchbook made by my friend Jeff here in Singapore. I'm not sure if he's still making sketchbooks, but you can ask him on his Instagram page, which I will link to in the video description below. So this is a really well-made sketchbook with this fabric cover, which is very beautiful. And this sketchbook has been in and out of my bag countless times, and the fabric holds up really well. And this sketchbook has Archer's cold pressed watercolor paper, so the quality is fantastic, and the binding is fantastic as well. So this is the first sketch. I can't actually remember why I drew this sketch because it wasn't drawn on location. So I was probably testing new colors that I have just purchased or received, or this was created for a patron tutorial. By the way, if you want to support my YouTube channel, you can support me on Patreon. So this was drawn on the 11th of June 2020, so that's almost 3 years ago. Wow. It took me 3 years to fill up this sketch. So this was sketched on the 27th of July 2020, and this was sketched at this pop-up market, this temporary market. I remember it was really windy. The clouds were really dark, so I had to clamp or clip my pages to prevent the pages from flipping around. And I had to finish this sketch before it starts to rain, so I drew this really quickly. And I like this sketch because I like the activity. I like what's happening. There were people shopping for vegetables here. This was probably sketched from a reference photo, so I was testing out some new colors that I had. Yeah. This was probably created for a tutorial as well. Actually, many of the sketches inside this sketchbook were created for tutorials and for YouTube videos. So I will go back to my archive and try to look for all those videos and link to them in the video description below. I do prefer to sketch on location compared to sketching from reference photo because you get to remember the experience more vividly compared to sketching from photo. Because right now, as I look at this sketch, I can't remember what's going on. This was sketched at Little India, again in 2020. This was a really hot day. It was cloudy, yeah, definitely very cloudy because there wasn't any obvious cast shadows. The colors that I've used, I can see cobalt blue deep. I can't remember the yellow. It's probably Hansa yellow medium before I switched to Azo yellow. So my color palette is mostly on the warmer side. I don't have a cool magenta for mixing purples. This is Kampong Kapor. I love this sketch. I could remember how hot it is. And I was seated outside the car park, and there were many vehicles turning in and out of the car park, so it was really noisy. And again, the weather wasn't that great, so I had to sketch really quickly before it starts to rain, and it did rain later on. I have a video for this as well. I really love this sketch. I like how the colors actually turned out. This was drawn along the same street, so if you walk down this street, Kampong Kapor Road, to the right side, you will see this church. This is cobalt blue deep mixed with burnt sienna. I prefer to use cobalt blue deep instead of French ultramarine because this has really beautiful granulation, very obvious granulation. So if you really like texture, go for granulating paint such as cobalt blue deep, cerulean blue chromium, or other granulating colors. This was sketched at Temple Street in Chinatown. Also in the year 2020, well, I actually managed to sketch a few sketches in 2020. I like this sketch as well because it looks kind of dynamic due to the perspective. You can see the skewed lines or the tilted lines. So when you're sketching on location, chances are, the buildings will appear perfectly vertical, but you can use your artistic license to tilt the buildings slightly, just to make the sketch look more exciting. Another way to make your sketches look more exciting or lively is to draw or add more people in your scene. So this was sketched outside this hotel or in front of this hotel, and this is kind of static because it's just buildings. Buildings don't move, they are static. But you can make this sketch look more lively just by adding more people. Maybe have people playing or exercising in front or on the park here, on the grass here. That would make this sketch look more interesting. So if you guys remember COVID, well, that lasted for about 2-3 years. And there were many restrictions in Singapore, which is probably the reason why I didn't feel like going out to sketch, because you had to wear your mask and it's quite uncomfortable to wear your mask and go out and sketch. So there was one time that I had to go fix my bicycle. So I went to this bicycle shop and I drew this sketch while waiting for the guy here to fix the bike. And you can see that he is actually wearing a face mask. I love this sketch, which took me probably 2 hours to draw and paint. It was quite challenging to sketch this because of all the details, so I tried to simplify as much as I could. And you can see I use white gel pen over the darker areas. So this is to create contrast. You can have black lines on white paper, or you can have white lines on darker areas. You can also see the warping perspective, and all the bike handles here, they are really difficult to draw. And all these stacked bikes as well, side by side. While drawing this, I met a friend who actually walked past this street and he saw me sketching, so we chatted for a while. So that's the great thing about joining the Urban Sketches group, because there are so many urban sketches around in the world, in your neighborhood. Chances are you may meet them once in a while you're sketching outdoors, and it's quite fun to catch up with your friend. I remember this was a cloudy day again, and it was drizzling slightly, but I managed to find a sheltered area to sketch this. And I also remembered a van parking in front of me, unloading wine, if I remember correctly. So that's the thing with sketching on location. You can remember a lot more compared to just taking a photograph. This was a sketch drawn at the National Museum of Singapore. So they had this tank which was displayed outside the museum. And when I made that video and uploaded that video, it happened to be the same week that Russia invaded Ukraine. So that video did not do well. Like, people were very sensitive. Like, why did you draw a tank like this people killing machine and post a video about it on the same week as the Russia-Ukraine war? Yeah. Anyway, that video is now back up 2 or 3 years later. This was drawn at East Coast Road, and there were some residential houses, low-level residential houses at that area. So it started to drizzle while I sketched, so I stopped the sketch. Anyway, I knew this wasn't going to work out because the perspective is off. This was actually quite challenging to sketch because of the div. So if I had to go back to the same location to sketch again, I will definitely create some pencil drafting lines first before I start with ink. If you create drafting lines first, you can avoid a lot of mistakes before you actually draw with ink. So it started to drizzle, so I went to another location, which is here. So after the previous sketch, I didn't have much time left because it was getting dark. So I sketched this really quickly, and it didn't turn out that well because, well, I had to draw a lot more details, and you can see I wasn't able to complete my sketch. And the color mixing isn't that great as well because I was rushing. Sketching takes time, so usually for me, I take around 1 to 2 hours to complete a sketch with watercolor. So if you don't have time, you don't have to always sketch across 2 pages. You can just sketch on 1 page. So I made the mistake here for sketching across 2 pages. Anyway, the composition isn't that great. I probably should have walked around a bit more, but it was getting dark really quickly, and I wanted to sketch something after the failed sketch here. This was drawn, this is now 2022, so I probably drew this, did I write the name of this place? I did not. Anyway, this is Admiral Hill. So I drew this during a sketch walk. So I was drawing this with Paul and other friends, Tony. So I have the video for this as well, and I love this sketch. I love this because I was sketching really fast, and the lines, they turn out really nicely. They look loose. So one tip that I have for you when it comes to drawing quick sketches is, or to make your sketches look more confident, is always close up your lines. Do not leave gaps. And sometimes it helps to draw like you don't care. So when you're drawing fast and you don't care, your lines will naturally look more confident. And your sketch will look better because the lines look more confident. I really like how the colors turned out. And this was drawn rather recently. So this was October 2022. This is September 2023. So that's almost a 1-year gap. So this is Site LV Road, a road in the Little India neighborhood. And again, it was going to rain, so I had to sketch really quickly. The thing about the weather here in Singapore is in the morning it's going to be hot, but there is a good chance of rain and thunderstorm from 12 noon onwards. And during monsoon seasons, it's even worse. It can rain in the morning and in the afternoon. I like this sketch, but I probably should have drawn more people here on the left side because this is actually a very popular neighborhood with lots of people, pedestrians are crossing the road, walking everywhere. I have a video for this as well. And this was drawn at Victoria Theatre. I was making some video as well. This was backlit. So the building was backlit. The sun was coming from the back and from the right side. So sometimes when you are sketching on location, you may want to take note of where the sun will be. For example, here I was actually sketching, was I sketching in the afternoon? I can't actually remember. Anyway, if it's in the afternoon and the sun is coming from this direction, it will be coming from the other direction in the opposite time, in the morning. So if you know where the sun will be, you can know where or when you should go out and sketch. So there is a story for these 2 pages. So I lost my watercolor box while I was out sketching one day. I left the watercolor box on this concrete slab here to dry so that the paint will not spill out into my bag. And I left the place without keeping the watercolor box. So the next day I had to take the train. This is the sketch of the train station platform. And I sketched inside the train. I held my sketchbook in hand while I drew this. And I went back to the same location and the watercolor box was gone. It was probably thrown away by the cleaners. Anyway, I found $10 on the ground that day, so that's $10 that I can use to offset my purchase of a new watercolor box. And this was sketched on the same day as well, but I didn't have time to paint this, so I went back on another day, the third day, to just paint this. I love this sketch. When I look at this sketch, it still makes me feel like I'm there on location sketching this. I'm under a big tree, and again there was a lot of traffic. It was really noisy and people were rushing, running across the street, and there were many tourists who were standing beside me to take photo of this street and this building. And on the same day, I created a digital sketch for this as well, for an online course that I'm creating for Infinite Painter. So here's a side-by-side comparison. I still prefer to use pen and ink and watercolor because I prefer to use traditional media to sketch, as it's way more fun compared to sketching digitally. But sometimes I will sketch with a tablet if I know I will not have the time. And in this case, I'm using Infinite Painter only because I'm creating an online course for it, which is already out on Skillshare and on Gumroad. And as usual, all the links to the courses and all those videos will be in the video description below. And I kind of like this sketch as well. Infinite Painter has this feature where you can apply paper texture onto the canvas, so you can get some nice textures as well. But the look will still be quite digital compared to traditional media. And this was drawn about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and I just realized that I did not write the name of the street and the date, so I will write that later. This is Sri Mariamman Indian Temple, which is located in the Chinatown area. So along this street, which is North Bridge Road, there is an Indian temple, a Chinese temple, and a Malay mosque on the right side. So this is a street with 3 religious buildings. Religious buildings, oh no, buildings cannot be religious. So places of worship, yeah. So places of worship usually have very intricate designs, and some of them are quite challenging to draw, especially Indian temples. So on this roof here, there are actually many characters and gods, so I really had to simplify this a lot. And finally, we have the last sketch in this sketchbook. So this is RSS Endeavour, a ship from the Singapore Navy, which was docked at this harbor beside a shopping mall. So for this sketch, I wanted to capture what's happening. There's a ship and it's beside the shopping mall. So this was quite fun to sketch, and the challenging part is getting the perspective right. So the most important thing about this sketch is to make sure you can fit the ship on the page. So this top part here is cropped off, and I knew it's going to be cropped off because it's quite high here. But I wanted to really make sure I fit the ship here. That takes up about 2/3 of the 2 pages, and 1/3 will be for the shopping mall to provide context to what's happening in this location. There were many people taking photos of the ship from the shopping mall, and many were on the ground level here queuing up to go up the ship. So even though I have many sketching videos on YouTube and I have shared many sketches on my Instagram page, I don't actually sketch that often. I wish I could sketch more often, but I just don't have the time to do so. So this sketchbook took me about 3 years to fill up, and that's quite a long time. So the illusion that I sketch often is the illusion of social media. I don't actually sketch that often. But as long as you sketch regularly, you can fill up your sketchbook eventually. All right, I hope this video is fun enough. Thanks for watching. See you guys again. Bye.